And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, joined today by my third guest, as we'll be talking about the tax renewal here in the Denham Springs School District. But with these coaches, we are discussing some of, their coaching, their legacy, their kids, that kind of thing. So, ma'am, good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Leslie Efferson. I'm the head softball coach at Denham Springs High School.
And we appreciate you being here. So, we are talking about it's a millage renewal. It is not a new tax. And I'll be interviewing school board members later about the dirty details of that.
Yeah.
But what's important is that this is not a new tax. This was for Denham Springs, or really Jubin Park Junior High and Junior Elementary. That's falling off. Got to have it renewed. Looking for a bond to build a bunch of new facilities at Denham Springs High School. One of which is why you are here,
yes,
is a softball field.
Correct.
Now, yours had an interesting twist to it. The school was going to have to purchase some land for yours. Now, that was approved by Northside Baptist Church.
Yes, it was.
Their board approved that and approved that purchase. So let's start there. How did you feel when that approval came through? Because that was kind of, block one.
Well, we actually, the softball coaches didn't realize that was actually going on. We knew that we were probably going to get a facility, and that's what we had been told, but we just didn't understand the complete details behind it, as far as like the church had to vote on it, and we just didn't realize it.
Sure.
And so whenever we were informed of it, it was kind of like that oh gosh moment, like
Sure.
almost blow to your stomach, because you kind of get excited about the possibilities of what is to come.
Sure.
And then realized, well, it's not really a done deal. Like we still had to wait on the church to vote on it, and we were so thankful. Coach Beard texted me the night that it actually passed, and
yeah, I mean,
so relieved.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, that had to be a relief, but it's still kind of a roller coaster, because,
Right.
that was step one. They approved that, but you still got to get, this renewal.
And then after seeing the plans, and then looking at the plans and just getting that excited, and then finding out, oh, well, this might not happen actually.
Sure.
And if this doesn't come through, then we'll go to plan B, which was, I believe, put the baseball, softball fields right next to each other on the other side of the road, on the freshman high side of the campus.
I got you. Well,
Right.
okay. Actually, I want to back up a little bit, because you came, as you said, you came the year of the flood.
Right.
And, you're the softball coach, and things got off to kind of a hairy start. But when I guess you could say Denham Springs High School was, courting is not the word I want to use, but kind of trying to recruit you to come down here and work.
Yes.
When you were looking at the facilities, did you ever think at that point, I wish these were on campus?
Oh, absolutely. There's never a time I don't think that any coach would ever say, I wish I could drive, 10, 20 minutes to go get to my field. It's just one of those things where when the kids get out of class, you're having to make sure that all the kids have rides there, and if the kids that are driving, if they're absent that day and they're not there, then who are those other kids going to ride with? And there's always a constant struggle trying to figure out just even how to get the kids to the park.
Sure.
And so, and then of course there's safety, worried about them on the roads, and especially when you put 4 teenage girls in a car. I mean, that's always fun. So, you have that concern getting over to the park. But even even when it's the block schedule, even then it's so hard to get them by the time we get to the field, and they get changed and they stretch and they throw. I mean, we have probably 30 minutes
right.
to do any kind of fundamental work with them. And that's just such a short amount of time. And then you have a lot of freshmen, and then their parents, instead of them riding the bus home, then the parents are having to try to come get them at, in the middle of the day, which most parents work now. And it's just, it was a constant struggle, and you always feel like behind the 8 ball. You know that especially within our district.
Sure.
I know for a fact that every single team in our district, well, I take that back, with the exception of Zachary. Zachary has a field away from campus like we do, but
sure.
The other, Live Oak and Central and Walker, they block schedule, and being on that block schedule, having that time with your kids in the fall is, you can't replace that time. It's just, it's crucial to develop in your program.
Sure.
And we just don't have that.
Well, and this would hopefully fix that. So,
yes.
we're going to talk about each one of those pieces kind of individually in a little bit more depth. But when you first heard that there was a plan and kind of first saw that map, what was your feeling? You didn't know about the church. You're not really worried about that at that point. You're just thinking like, oh my gosh, we might get this field on campus, or at least, right next to campus. So what was your feeling then?
Well, I mean, the coaching staff and I, we had a conversation about it, just obviously so excited. And then, the next question was, well, if this is to come to pass, how long are we looking, in the future? Are we talking a year or 2 years? And we heard a lot of talking about it. We just, I actually didn't see the plans until I went to one of the meetings.
The Athletic Association meetings?
Yeah, okay. Yes. And that's when we saw the plans, and then.
Right. And what did,
that was even more exciting.
Right. And you're looking at a multi-facility improvement. I mean, even like you said, if there's a plan B, you kind of scale it back. Y'all are still getting baseball, softball, potential for soccer and football practice field, a track.
Yes.
All these things that would help keep all this on campus. So, as a coach, you've already discussed it, but I'm asking you to go in a little more detail. When you're talking about logistics, I mean, let's just start there. I mean, I'm not talking about feelings. I'm not talking about legacy. Right. I'm talking about how does that make you feel as a coach? Because as you said, and I'm going to ask you to elaborate on what you mean by block scheduling in the fall. I know, but they might not. How does that make you feel as a coach to maximize that time with your team?
So the way that it was before, we had 7 hours in the school day, and the 7th hour was typically for softball. For us, it was for softball.
Sure.
And we had, about an hour, a little less than with the kids. And so you did have some fundamental time with them there, but you saw them every day. Like we saw them every day. It was a little less than an hour. And that was whether we were lifting that day or, because we usually lift 3 days a week. And then we have Tuesday, Thursday, we'll usually do fundamental things. And then when we switch to block schedule, we do have more time with the kids for the hour, but we only see them, well, like on the odd week, we see them 3 times a week.
Right.
On the even weeks, we only see them Tuesday, Thursday.
Gotcha.
So, now that we're not seeing them, we don't see them every day, but we see them for longer. So it's kind of
it balances itself out.
Yes, I have mixed feelings about it because I like to see my kids every day.
Sure, I get that. But so you've switched to a block schedule, but from a logistical standpoint, it gives you an extra 20 minutes, 25 minutes with these kids because you're trying to get them over there as fast as possible, but you're trying to be as safe. So it's not like you can tell them, get out of class and get on the field. It's like, no, please get to your car, be safe, get over here safely. Because as you said, you've had some incidents. I mean, can you tell? I mean, don't tell us who it was or anything, but you've had a couple of incidents where kids, called and said, "Hey, we're going to be late because we had a fender bender right at school."
Right.
Tell us, what happened those days.
One of the days, one of my girls, she was backing out of her parking space, and it was just another kid. All the kids are leaving school at the same time.
Sure.
And he didn't see her. He had a bigger vehicle, and he just backed right into her. So, I mean, nobody was hurt in any of the incidences, but it's still alarming. You get that phone call and then you're calling kids' parents. And another time, one of the kids was pulling out of the actual parking lot onto the street and somebody T-boned her. And,
oh gosh.
But she was fine. It wasn't a high impact, collision or anything. But, you still, your first call, the phone call you get is, "Coach, we just got in a wreck." And, of course that terrifies you. And so, yeah, I mean, and then you're getting to higher speeds as the further they get to the park. And
sure. So there's always a constant worry about, these kids getting from one location to another. Whereas in this case, at most they're crossing the street. So there's got to be a little bit of, there's both safety and a logistical part because you save that time, right? Yep. So you might be able to do a lift and a fundamental practice in one day.
We will. We'll split them up.
We will.
We already know. We've already talked about it. We know how we're going to do it. We're going to have half the kids at the field and half of the kids in the weight room, and we'll split them up.
And how, being able to reclaim that time, because that all adds up because you start talking about 9 weeks per quarter or and 18 weeks in a semester. All that extra 30 minutes starts adding up to more time with kids and more time with training. How do you feel that would help your program?
Well, in our season, going to our season, it is such a grind. It is such a long season, and then like just the month of March alone, I think we had I don't know, it was 16 games and like I don't know, 25 days. I mean, the season is a grind. So in the fall, we try not to keep them after school as much as possible, just because of that. And a lot of
Sure.
those kids are coming off of playing summer ball, so they're exhausted. And so we try not to keep them after school, but a lot of times we have to because we don't get that work in because we have to.
Right.
We have to
Right.
because we don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
And so, even if we stay on campus, we're fighting. A lot of times we're fighting with, not fighting, but we're battling with other teams just to find just a space to
Right.
throw. Because baseball, they're out there, they're throwing baseballs around, and then you got soccer, and then you have cheerleading, and you have dance team out there, and I mean, it was just it's chaotic.
Right. Especially in the fall. I mean, because there are other sports that are in season that are competing
Yes,
for that space.
and yeah,
So, when you're talking about growing a program to the next level, adding those 30 minutes per day over 18 weeks, those are huge jumps, especially
huge.
when these kids are coming from the summer.
And we won't have to keep them after school.
Right.
But
Any more than that
we
period.
might, but occasionally, but it'll be rare just because we're going to get that extra time in with them.
Sure. So, also, and we talked about this with Coach Carroll, from a facilities standpoint, when you were you approached about anything once the plan came out, or once the plan came out, they said, okay, this is kind of what it looks like. What do you want from it? How did that work?
Yeah, Mr. Cecil came and sat down with me, and of course, the coaches and we all talked about what, our ultimate, like what we wanted and what our vision was for the perfect field, obviously,
Sure.
and that's what they said. Go, dream big, like you go big, and then we'll go scale down from there, which is great. I mean, and no, we didn't go overboard with it, but I mean, I hope the plan is. Like whenever they came to us with the indoor facility, there were things in the indoor that we won't need showers. That's just not something that the softball team will do. I mean, the girls just typically don't do that in general.
Sure.
So like we don't need showers. We don't have to have a training room in there. So we were scaling down some of the things so that we could add more room for other things that we did want, like more storage space or a closet to hang the uniforms, because I think that's the thing. It's a minor thing, but it's also. When you have all like five sets of jerseys and you have them all in tubs because you have no place to put them, having a closet to have hang those in, that's huge. And then just a place to store our equipment. And
that's interesting. Usually kids are going to have a locker for their sport and they're going to have all these things. They don't have that?
Well, we got some hand-me-down lockers, these old metal lockers that were in the football locker room. Before we even got here, they had just placed them outside, and I asked them what they were doing with them, but they were so heavy. We got them up the stairs.
Oh, God.
That was interesting, but we used Coach Elliot's truck and like a little pulley system, and like we did the whole. But we got them upstairs because I wanted the kids to have. We had a locker room, a place for them to change. There was no lockers.
Okay.
It was just a space above the concession stand at North Park.
Right.
That wasn't really being utilized, so. That's kind of what I started doing when I first got here. It's like we need a place for the kids to change where they can hang their uniforms. Now the lockers are very small.
Sure.
And but we do collect them at the end of the year.
Right.
I don't just let the kids keep their uniforms. We always make sure we do uniform check and we hang them all back up. And
right. So tell us a little bit more about this indoor facility. Is that like indoor batting cages?
Yes.
Okay. So and that'll be in addition to your field, correct?
Right.
Okay.
That's. The hope is that Mr. Cecil basically asked me in order which order of things that we wanted.
Sure.
And he said if you had to choose between indoor facility and a all turf field, or a locker room, that's what he said. An indoor facility for hitting and pitching on rainy days, or a locker room. I said I want the indoor facility because it rains all the time. I mean, right now we just rained out with a game with Walker yesterday, and then we were trying to make it up today and can't do it. And then probably the game tomorrow will be, so we need a place where we can go inside.
Right.
Because there's really not, there's 3 gyms on campus. However, there's always somebody in there. That's another thing. You're always trying to find a place to go.
Right.
So having that indoor facility for me was way more important for the future of our program.
Right.
Then, if we had to go into Hornsby to change and then go out to the field, then so be it.
Sure.
So that's kind of what they did.
Sure.
As they said in order, and he was kind of surprised, I think, when I said, the first thing is I wanted turf.
Right.
Because until you take care of a field that big, you don't understand, how hard it is, and it's constant. And
Right.
Where we are at North Park now, it doesn't matter how many improvements that we make to the field. We are only on it for 3 months, and then after that, it's open to the public. So it's
not even really your field.
It's not our field.
You do the best you can with it.
We've put about $20,000 into it.
Sure.
Just ourselves, just from our softball account since we've been here.
So that was something I talked with Coach Carroll about was, and you've already brought it up. The baseball team as well, obviously has cancellations. They're doing their best to get practices in, get those things done. What would having an indoor facility and preferably a turf field, how would that help improve being able to, move through the season? Because like you said, it's a grind, but it's also getting in that rhythm. And when you cancel games, I would imagine, especially now with COVID, it's very hard to make those up.
Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit about how, having an indoor facility and having turf would help improve playing conditions and everything for your kids, and just the mindset of you as a coach, not having to constantly invest thousands of dollars in your field.
Right. Well, turf is obviously it's a safer surface. The balls, when the ball hits the ground, it's going to take a truer hop. I'm not going to say that people won't get injured, but it's just a lot safer than playing on the clay, because with the clay we have to keep it in perfect condition all the time, just so that because it gets too hard, and that's when kids end up getting a ball in the mouth because the field is too hard. So we're constantly watering the field. We're constantly so just not having to spend that kind of time. And 45 minutes before practice, 45 minutes after practice. I mean, that's what the coaching staff is doing.
Right.
Not necessarily the kids, but I mean, that's almost 2 hours out of our day that we're trying to just do field prep.
Right.
Before we step onto it, or as soon as we step off of it.
Right. And that is both a long-term maintenance thing, because if you don't do it, you rip your field up.
Yes.
But it's also a safety thing as well.
Right.
So having turf kind of alleviates a lot of that outside pressure.
Absolutely.
So from an athlete standpoint, from your ladies' standpoint, I'm both coaches so far, and I'm sure Coach Beard and anybody else that comes and talk, you've already experienced some of the excitement coming out of these kids. And I know some of the older kids may not be able to experience it, but at least they're going to kind of leave a legacy of, we were there when these plans started. So, how do your kids feel from that standpoint? Are they excited? They want this to happen. And, the secondary question, which I might have to re-ask just depending on how long your answer is, what is, from your standpoint, in terms of a legacy standpoint, how do you feel this is going to, or what is the main benefit for your program, being able to bring these facilities onto campus and improving them in such a way? So let's start with the kids. What are they feeling? How excited are they right now for this project? Oh,
they're tremendously excited because they help us do a lot of the field work. So yeah, they're really excited. They're helping us, whether it's water the field or drag the field, or not really drag the field, but I mean they're always raking the warning track, and I mean there's just so many things that go into trying to just get the field ready. So from that standpoint, they're extremely they're elated, but I hear them talking about it all the time. When it'll sure be nice one day when we don't have to do this, don't have to and then cancel games. I mean
sure.
And then even just having the tarp, having the tarp to put it on and off and on and off, that's a constant thing.
Right.
So that wears on them, all of us, because sometimes
sure.
we come home from a game and it's 10 o'clock at night and we're like, I'm sorry, guys, we got a tarp.
Yeah.
And their parents are waiting and it's 10 o'clock at night and they haven't even gotten home from school yet.
Right.
So, but I think it's important for any program. I think where there's your uniforms, if you feel like you look good, you play better. I mean, that's just a fact. It's just having pride in what you have, which is why we've done so much to the field at North Park, because we're going to do the best we can with what we have.
Sure.
Because we want our kids to be proud of where we play. Not,
sure.
And so, I mean, that's just one thing you can't, to walk up to a field and see it and have something that that is yours and you're proud to be part of it.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that elevates your program. The
Sure.
mentality of your athletes. Plus, it helps, get people, more kids there to
Sure.
actually want to play.
Well, and that was the next question. I mean, there's some intangibles there, but you've already discussed earlier in the podcast about how it gives you more time with your kids, gives you more fundamentals, and that's a way to build the program. But
Right.
does adding facilities onto the campus, especially facilities as nice as this, get more kids, even in high school, interested, but at lower levels? They're like, I'm ready to play softball for Denham Springs High School. You feel like that would happen?
Oh, for sure. Because, I mean, you think about just a little kid going to a college baseball game. I mean,
Sure.
you can look at it like that. I mean, you just walk up and you're in awe of the facility. Even when you're a teenager and you go to LSU, baseball game or a softball game, it's immaculate. It's beautiful.
Right.
And I can't imagine an 8, 9-year-old kid, not being impressed with that, or a dad wanting to stop by with his kid and say, one day you might play there. And I mean, it's I think it's crucial. I really do, for all of our programs.
Sure. And that's what the coaches before you said is it sort of becomes a beacon, and really kind of helps bring the community together around Denham Springs High School, because you're improving the grounds where these kids are going. And you kind of feel like, this is a question, do you feel that, with it being so close to campus, more kids would show up for games and things of that nature?
Yes, I do. I do. And I think it's hard to get the kids out to North Park a lot of times. But I do think being on campus, they could just walk right across the street, and, the facility's right there.
Sure.
And most time for softball anyway, we let all our students in free if they have their ID, just because we want them there.
Sure.
And I'll lose that money at the gate, and we had to pay a good bit for umpires, but I'll lose that money just to have students come, because that obviously, whenever your kids have people there watching them and supporting them, that's just another huge thing that elevates your program and makes your athletes proud to be part of something.
Sure. So from a developmental standpoint, and from getting kids, interested, like you said, they see that big field, they want to play there. Returning to that question I asked as a follow-up, what do you think, or here's a better one, what kind of trajectory do you think this is going to put your program on once it's completed? Let's say it's passed, and you're currently working on a program, you're already sacrificing 30 minutes in the fall with your kids, trying to get them out to, and now you want students to come out, you're getting closer, you're giving these ladies, more ownership in the program, you're giving them lockers and that sort of thing, an indoor facility to battle the rain. All of a sudden you're modernizing your program. What trajectory would you expect to take, adding those things to your repertoire, I guess you can say?
Well, the coaching staff that we have is amazing. There's Lana Bowers, who she played at ULL, and she's coached collegiately herself, and she was a catcher, played in the College World Series. She knows the game. She's an excellent coach. And you got Robbie Yellett, same thing. He's been working with our hitters for the last few years, and he's done a great job. And then now with Lana there, they work so well with those hitters. And there's a lot of time we don't get with those kids, because of the transition time, like back and forth. So just having, and Coach Crow, Harley Crow, she's a Denham alum. She played here, and I remember I was at Zachary whenever Harley Crow played at Denham, and I hated when she came up to bat. It was Case and Crow. It was the Case and Crow show. It's just like you just didn't want either one of those two to come up to bat. So we have her working with our outfielders and with our base runners, and so the coaching staff is amazing. But now that we'll have time to actually invest more in our kids and teach, we'll be able to teach fundamental things that we're now teaching, because we didn't have the time to do that with them in the fall.
Sure.
And now we're halfway through the season, and there's things that we haven't even gotten to.
Right.
And so that alone is gonna improve our program, because I won't feel so far behind as
Sure.
As the head coach. I know I feel behind a lot because there's only so much we can do.
Right. It gives you a better base to build.
Oh yes. I mean, the more better your fundamentals, and the more the coach, the players understand the coach's expectations and how they want things done, the better your program. And so when a lot of that falls off because you just don't have the time to get to it, until later, until the spring when you have 18 days maybe to practice before your first time you step on the field. Which is kind of insane to think about, but it's true.
It
It's true.
is. You said that, and I was like, God,
it's a true story.
That's crazy.
And that's if it doesn't rain
so
or snow.
Or freeze or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, and at that point you'd have an indoor facility, so
Yep.
you'd have a chance to make that happen anyway. So last thing to sort of wrap it up, and this is sort of, I guess you can call it the curveball I throw. You have a parent of a child that's on your softball team walks up to you and says, "Coach, I know this renewal is on the ballot coming up in a couple of weeks. Why should I vote yes?" What are you saying to that parent?
This is only going to help all of the sports programs, at Denham. It's gonna do nothing but help, and it's not going to be anything extra out of their pockets every month, because it's if it passes, it's not, the taxpayer's not going to see the difference.
Right.
So they're not going to have to pay any more to have this happen.
Sure.
And for all of these kids, the thousands of kids that these facilities are going to help, there's just, there's nothing but positive that will come out of this.
Right.
And it's not going to hurt anybody financially. So.
Right. So, again, Coach, if you'll introduce yourself, I guess, or reintroduce yourself for the listeners out there, please.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm Leslie Efferson, and I'm the head softball coach at Denham Springs High School.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you
so
taking
much.
the time. I know the viewers appreciate it as well, or the listeners. And again, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Reminding folks, this is a millage renewal. It is on the spring ballot, the second spring ballot. Actually, there was a small municipal election. It'll be April 24th. Early voting starts April 10th. Please check that out. And of course, we started with Andy McLean. We did Coach Mark Carroll. Now Miss Leslie has been here, and next we're going to have Coach Brett Beard. Please remember that the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube once a week in print on Thursdays. That's $7 a month to get that in your mailbox, and we are at www.livingstonparishnews.com online. Appreciate you guys joining us for this episode. Thanks for your attention, and we will see you next time.